Alright, a little bonus footage. It's a beautiful day. We're going to take this Pastry van on one more test drive. It has to be absolutely flawless. So OBD2 data, 13.9, 13.9. We're starting off great. Let's fire it up. And it has to pass that fuel system monitor. We're going to go on a 20-mile test drive. Just normal test drive. And hopefully that monitor will pass. So right off the bat, look at that. 5% long term minus 5% short term. It is so happy now. Even the engine knock seems to have gotten better. It feels like a brand new van now. Look at those fuel trims. 5 and minus 5. Amazing. Cruising through the beautiful Pennsylvania countryside. Oh, I guess it has a smart transmission that brakes with the engine. I have this cruise control set to 59. Just burning some miles here. So at 60 miles per hour in top gear, you're at about 2,000 RPM. Near 0% fuel trims. I love it. This van is definitely fixed. Amazing. So we're just cruising on State Highway 45. Cruise set at 62 miles per hour. Beautiful springtime weather. Single digit fuel trims, I love it. Yes. And we'll see that fuel system monitor set. Victory. Fuel system monitor ready. It's happy. So I guess the fuel trims have to stabilize because last time it was learning from the poor map sensor signal, so each block had to relearn. So I guess resetting the keep alive memory would have been a little faster, but proof is in the scan data. Unbelievable. So that's it for this one. Like I said, I have no words about this Pastry van. It drives like a new van now. No more engine knock, no more surging or stalling or anything. But it had like 5 separate issues. Pastry vans never run this good. No fault codes and live data. What a beautiful sight. Engine off, baro and map agree precisely. We're done. I can't believe it. Hey everyone, Merry Christmas. I really hope you enjoyed the Christmas special for 2024. Holy crap, what a bizarre Ford van. Yeah, I think as Bernie Thompson would say, that is a crazy van. So I think I had a few thoughts, follow up on what the heck happened, you know, through the whole series, and then feedback from the customer. So this van left here 7 months ago. This is back in May, and he said the van has been absolutely flawless for 7 months. So that is fantastic feedback. We solved all the issues. It had so many issues, it blew my mind. So let's do a quick recap of what we solved, and I still have a couple questions that remain unanswered. So let's do that. So when this van came in, it was actually towed here, but it was drivable. What were the customer complaints? This surge under load, the turbos kind of boosting and unboosting, and then more and more frequently, it had this stalling issue, and a couple times it happened on the highway. So the customer is very concerned about this. So it's intermittent, but it almost makes the van not drivable because you can't trust it. So 2 customer complaints in terms of symptoms. When we scanned it for codes, it had a whole laundry list: coolant temp sensor, oxygen sensor, map sensor performance. I forget the whole list of codes, but we kind of started chipping away at it. For the coolant temp sensor code, you saw the temperature was not steady. There was oil in the harness. Bizarre. Where is that coming from? I believe it was coming from a leaky camshaft position sensor that was sending oil into the harness, and it was kind of migrating on the sensor ground circuit. Did that have anything to do with the other issues? Perhaps. Maybe. We'll discuss that in a little bit. So then the oxygen sensor, that was the only kind of straightforward, yes, it's bad. We had a specific code for that. You saw the current was oscillating and the van was actually at idle. The RPMs were going up and down. The fuel trims were ramping up and down like a 30% swing. So new oxygen sensor resolved that problem. Cleaning the connectors resolved the coolant temp sensor problem. And then the Dorman boost control solenoid was absolute junk. That was the main cause of the turbo surge, because it was like on, off. It had a huge hysteresis. It would turn off at 0 volts and turn on at like 10 volts. So no wonder the turbo wastegate was just opening and closing instead of being regulated. So an eBay, supposedly made in Germany OEM equivalent solenoid fixed that problem. At this point, I thought we were done. It had a weak battery, so we replaced the battery just for consistency. But we weren't quite done. If you remember, it also had the stalling problem, which happened once. And it was a crank no start setting low fuel pressure codes. Again, blew my mind. How is that related? I was very close to replacing the high pressure pump. I'm glad I didn't, because hey, for 7 months it's been driving perfectly. So that must have been an effect of all these other issues. The computer must have just been confused and for some reason stopped commanding the pump that one time. So again, it just shows how interrelated these systems are. So at that point, I think it actually completed all the drive cycles. It was running great, and I thought we were done, but that was not the case. So again, we drove it to the gas station. Everything was great, but in the parking lot, just sitting there idle, playing around with it, it became unhappy. It set that P0106 map performance code, and on the drive back, it set a completely different code, the P0012, which was a camshaft, over retarded on the intake cam. So I'm like, that could be related to the fuel pressure problem, but the high pressure pump is driven off the exhaust cam, and this was for the intake cam. Still, it was an issue. It was repeatable if you drive it, at a very narrow range, up a slight grade, under load. And as we found, the oil control solenoid, the screen was pretty clogged up, probably because of extended oil change intervals. Now, the oil change interval is supposed to be 10,000 miles, but we all know that's not a good idea, especially on a turbocharged GDI engine. Terrible idea. So full synthetic every 5,000 miles. So cleaning the solenoid and doing an oil change resolved that problem. Then I thought we were done, but the main or the most bizarre problem was yet to come. So after fixing the P0012, it completed all the drive cycles again. Everything was great. It had more power than ever before because the camshafts were advancing appropriately, and the turbo was doing great, and it passed all the monitors. Awesome, right? Are we done? I called the customer. He was ready to pick it up. And then right here in my lot, I went to move it, and boom, it had that service engine or engine fault message again. Set the I think the 2196, which was oxygen sensor stuck rich, bizarre code, and the P0106 map code. And you know, it usually that happened after it cooled down a bit, and then you went to start it again, and it was just right off the bat, wasn't happy about something. The key there was noticing on scan data that the map reading in, I think it was in PSI, did not match baro. I mean, it was close, but it was like 1 PSI off. Baro was 13.9, and the map was reading almost 15, and it climbed up even more, like closer to 16 when it was at the worst. So that right there was a red flag. With the key off, those two sensors, the map and the baro, should be identical. And the map was kind of floating around. That's when we discovered that the ground for the map sensor was not perfect. It wasn't 0 millivolts. It was approaching 300 millivolts, which for a sensor ground, that's not good. A load test with a test light didn't seem to make it worse. It was still about 300 millivolts, which, boom, blew my mind. You know, if you just check it with a test light, a normal power and ground check, it would check out fine. And on that ground tree for all the sensors, the ground for example, the fuel rail pressure sensor was fine. It was like 80 millivolts with under normal, just key on, while the map sensor ground was 300 millivolts. So the only way that could possibly explain that is a bad splice. What? How? So that's when, I couldn't believe it, but we had to find the splice. The data was pointing us towards that splice, and when I finally found it, it took over an hour of just cutting the harness insulation, kind of the sheath, and looking for this stupid splice. It was not quite where the OEM information said it was. And once we found it, it looked mint, absolutely mint. Just a crimp. Oh, I don't know if it's called a cold crimp joint when they press it really hard. There was like 5 wires in that one crimp, and the one for the map sensor had this elevated voltage under load. How do you explain that? That's why I titled that episode Ford defies Ohm's law, or breaks Ohm's law, because you could load up that ground and it didn't seem to get worse. It was just hovering at that 300 millivolts. A map sensor shouldn't draw that much current, and the most bizarre thing was, remember we unplugged the map sensor and plugged it right back in? It went back down to normal. That ground kind of fixed itself temporarily. After you let it sit there, it'll start drifting up again. It's not like the thing is heating up, the splice is heating up or significantly. Like, what is the mechanism to explain that slightly elevated ground? I just kept poking at it, like tugging on it, and it would kind of fluctuate, but it never got really bad. It wasn't like green crusties. The wire was fine. It was just that splice connection. And the final fix was just flow solder over everything, heat it up nice and hot, and then everything was perfect. So, I don't know. We fixed a factory crimp, which people swear by, with a soldering iron. That's right. So, you can see why I trust my soldering iron over crimps. The factory crimp, in the middle of the harness, it was nice and dry, there's no corrosion. Now, is it possible that some oil wicked from the cam sensor to that ground? I guess there wasn't but if the wires are crimped in there, even a little bit of oil on there shouldn't cause a higher resistance. It absolutely blew my mind. I still can't explain the exact mechanism for that. And the fact that you unplug it, plug it back in, it fixes itself. If you can explain that, put it down in the comments. So I'm pretty sure I will never see this problem ever again. It was very difficult to track down because A, we have to fix all the other, whatever, 6 issues to make sure that those aren't a variable. And finally, this thing was, it was intermittent, and it was 300 millivolts, which, the van could compensate with the fuel trims. But if you're 1 or 2 psi off on that map sensor, it messed with it enough to cause a drivability issue. And you can see how precise these sensors are. All the sensor grounds have to be at exactly the right voltage for all the sensors to be referenced to the same, baseline, and then they report accurately within, a 1/10 of a psi. That's how accurate the sensor has to be for the van to drive as designed and the fuel trims to stay around 0%. So again, mine was completely blown, but that was, you saw the proof in the data that resoldering that factory splice was the final fix for the final problem of the P0106 and that rich code, the P2196. So again, hope you enjoyed the the EcoBoost from hell, and stay tuned for the New Year's special. We have another special card coming up. And again, Merry Christmas. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.